Gather round, dads, it's time for a tale. Hand me a book and a warm pint of ale. Let's discuss writing and the literary gods with Dan Roberts on the Dad Lit Pod.
Welcome to the Dad Lit Pod, the literary podcast for people who don't have MFAs and some people who do. I'm your host, Dan Roberts. Uh, I guess prophet of the dad literati. Today I'm joined by Michael Vadney. Michael is an American author and podcaster. He was born in the Florida Keys and raised in the woods of Pennsylvania, not unlike Paul Bunyan. No, that's just kidding. He was raised in the woods of Maine, like me. He loved classics like The Hobbit and Redwall, and that sparked his initial journey into fantasy. Uh, Returning to writing and enjoying fantasy are things that he's wanted to do since childhood. And Michael likes to explore people and topics that exist in the space between. His storytelling blends layered characters, purposeful world building, and grounded emotional truth fantasy shaped by the realities that define us. You could find him at Michael Vadney, VADNEY.com. He's also the podcast host of Author Adjacent, a podcast exploring the path from hobbyist writer to professional author. He does candid interviews, bite sized craft lessons, book reviews, and more, with each episode digging into the real work of writing and publishing, the challenges, the victories, and the long and uneven road between them. New episodes drop every Friday on YouTube and Spotify. Join the journey. So you're just like me.
I'm trying my best to be.
Yeah, but you have a book, so you're doing better than I. Well, I have a book. It's just not a fiction book. I actually have multiple published books. They're just not fiction published books. I did
Yeah,
them
yeah,
through
they're
my
all
job.
nonfiction.
They're all nonfiction. Um, so you jumped in. When did you start writing again? When did you decide that you'd had enough of simply reading and that you wanted to weigh in and create your own Michael Vadney sized Kool-Aid Man hole in the wall of fantasy?
I think it's something that, like most people, it kind of lives in the back of your head for most of your life. I think very few writers just go one day, you know what, I'm just going to try this. Most of them, it sits back there and you really think about it and you always push it away because, like, you have more practical things to do, like
Hmm.
get an education, get a good job, take care of your family, take care of your responsibilities, pay your bills. But there's also something I've really noticed, and this happened to me too, is when you start approaching your 30s, you start reevaluating your life and the things that you want. Because usually by that point, you've done the thing. You've gotten your education. Your career is usually like, if you've done the typical path, your career is at least mostly stable, and you have your responsibilities that you need to take care of taken care of. And you start thinking, well, what about those dreams that I had?
Yes, you
And
experience soul death, is what I call it.
oh my
It's the
God,
death of
th-
your soul.
I love that. I'm going to start telling people that when they start asking me why'd you start
Well,
writing, my
no, no,
soul
yeah,
died.
no, I understand what you're saying. You get to a certain point, you become enmeshed in the duties of a thing.
Yeah.
And deep inside of you lives a message or something you want to say. And in the wee hours between earning that green and I guess sleeping and trying to keep the dust from accumulating in the corners of your life, you take a little time to write a book. And so that started for you in your 30s.
Yeah, I read a trilogy of books called the Licanius trilogy by James Islington. And I remember reading that trilogy, and at the end of it, there's a bio about the author, and it was talking about how James didn't start writing and taking it seriously until he was like 31 or 32 or something like that.
Hmm.
And I had the inane idea, the inane thought of it's not too late, which now I know is the dumbest thing in the world, a very like young guy thing to think at
Hmm.
like I think I was 27 or 28 at the time. Um, Now I know it's like it's never too late to follow your dreams. I know it's corny to say that, but most dreams you can start them at 40, 50, 60, 70. Maybe not being an NBA All-Star, but there are a
Hmm.
lot of other dreams outside of that. You can definitely start pursuing at any age. And I hit 30 and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start trying to take it seriously. But like with most things, when you're first trying to do something seriously that you've never really done seriously before, there was a lot of stumbling blocks. And I had a lot of long periods of time where I didn't write for 8 or 9 months. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago where I was like, no, I want this dream. I want this to be part of my identity. And it's not going to be until I actually sit down and discipline myself to do it.
I think there are two things that are interesting about that. And one is obviously the discipline component,
Yeah.
which I've experienced as well, which is that it feels unnatural until you do it and make a point of doing it, and even do it when it feels unnatural.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing is this question of identity. Now that's interesting, because most people I know who have identity crises just get like tattoos,
Mm.
which are composited, yes, which sort of become the composite elements of an artistic identity. But you decided to become an author. What does that mean to you, to have like an author identity?
Well, to me, identity in general is it's not what you think, it's not what you believe, it's what you do, it's your daily, it's your
Hmm.
what is the pattern of actions that you default to. And
Hmm.
that's not something that's like intrinsic or instinct by default. Like you can teach yourself a pattern, you can teach yourself discipline, you can create a regimen and a routine that becomes your identity. And for me, I wanted that to be writing. I wanted that to be something that I wore myself away to the bone achieving, and not even just achieving, just pursuing. Like,
Hmm.
I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to keep doing stories, no matter what level of success I do or do not have. Because either one of two things will happen is either I will succeed, and that's great, and I just get to, my reward is I get to keep doing it, or I will die, and it doesn't matter because I'll be dead.
Well, what so the one of the I think the challenges is what it success in your case is to do the act, right?
Yeah, and I know it's kind of like college bro, but I like stoicism for that fact is that it's never the pursuit of the goal. The goal doesn't matter. It's
Hmm.
fall in love with the process, fall in love with the act of pursuing the goal. In this case, writing. I like creating stories. I like telling stories. Before
Hmm.
I got really into actually writing a book, I would tell creative stories with like D&D playing with my friends and doing all the silly voices with my characters in a group storytelling setting, or I would really enjoy stories that came from like movies and shows and the books that I read. But I love the pursuit of just I'm grinding myself away. I am spending my limited resources of time and effort and sacrificing all these things because I love this craft so much. It's just so fun to do.
Yeah, what is a what's your schedule look like? Because a lot of people really struggle with like how to make it happen. And I'm a big
Yeah.
believer in 5 a.m. Writer Club. Like
I
5
am
a.m. if
also a
if
believer.
if if you're gonna do it, and if you're going to do it as a dad, the statistics on the dad literati and the people that I talk to on this podcast are that people tend to be retired and or they tend to be military veterans
Mm,
who either have the time to write because they are also retired, but they retire a little earlier than everybody else.
hmm
Or alternatively, they are retired and sort of self-employed or part-time employed. And in the meantime, they find the ability and the time to do that. I bet very few, even the professional authors I know and who I've talked to, tend to be teachers,
hmm
which permits them a certain amount of fluidity, a certain amount of time. Not to mention that writing is and figures into their job. Um, I think in terms of full-time writers, so full-time novel writers, I've probably had five on the pod, five
Yeah.
people who just full-time novel write. It is a very it is an experience that is few and far between
Yeah.
in the writing world these days.
And for
So
those five people, I would ask, like, do they have a rich spouse?
yeah, if you have a rich spouse, you get to enjoy all sorts of writing opportunities.
Just say it. It's a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I'll tell my wife. My wife is actually it believes so you do a podcast as well.
Yes.
My wife is like, "Well, how are you going to make money from the podcast?" And I say, one day I'm going to use it to sell my book and advertise my book. And then she says, that doesn't sound very productive. But you have a podcast. You've probably had
I do.
more success monetizing. Have you monetized your podcast?
I have not.
I haven't either.
Here.
Yeah.
You got two questions there. I'll go back and answer the first
Yes.
one about my schedule, and then I'll answer about the
Yes. Yeah.
podcast because I got stuff for both. As far as my schedule, I agree. The 5 a.m. Writers Club is where I live.
Hmm.
I go to bed relatively early. I'm like if I'm in bed by 11, that's a late night for me. I prefer to go to bed between 9 and 10 because I'm gonna be up at 5 a.m. I'm gonna get
Hmm.
up. I'm gonna immediately make myself something hot to drink because I need something hot liquid to wake me up, and then I immediately go to my computer and just start working on whatever my next project is. And I'll try to squeeze in at least 2 hours of doing that. I usually don't get that much time to it because just other responsibilities, got to take care of the animals, get ready for work, and all that stuff. But I'm also very fortunate that I work from home. So where I sit to write is also where I sit to work. I don't have a
Hmm.
long commute. And for writers, I think that is an amazing thing. There is something I do miss about my commute, which is just thinking about my stories while I'm driving. But for the most part, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, so
And
you have the serial killer plotting um gene like I do,
oh, oh
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
yeah,
I
where
plot.
where you drive around. Well, you're not a serial. I mean, where when you're driving, you do your thinking because of
hmm
the associated stimulation of sort of changing scenery and the kinetic element of it. I find that that's also really helpful for the creative process is having
Oh yeah.
long drives by myself.
Yeah.
I
Either
get to
drives
think it
or
through.
just any kinds of movement. Like if I can't go for a drive someplace or the traffic is terrible and I just don't want to deal with it, like going for a walk, just moving is so useful for thinking. Like if I have
Hmm.
to sit still and try to solve a problem, I hate it.
Yeah.
It is so much harder to come up with a solution. But yeah, I get most of my writing done in the morning because by the time I go through like my day job and then whatever responsibilities I have around the house and errands and stuff like that, I'm wiped.
Yeah.
I just don't have the thinking capacity to do this part well, and I want to do it well, so I make it the first thing that I do every single day.
Hmm. I think
And
that's
then,
quite sensible. And so you
yeah,
started the podcast. When did you start the podcast?
a little over 2 years ago. Oh God, I might be creeping up on three at this point.
Oh, great.
Um, yeah, and I started the podcast because I was doing a lot of research about being an author and being a writer, and I was like, I want to succeed at this. Like,
Hmm.
yes, I know I talked a big game earlier about the process and everything and falling in love with that, and I still very much believe that. But I do have a goal here, and I would like to achieve that goal so that I can continue to do this process to more and more greater heights. So I studied the craft. I studied the business of being an author. And the biggest thing that kept coming back and back with the research that I was doing as I was just starting to pursue this dream was you need a platform. It doesn't matter what that platform is. You can do it through social media. Some people do that through like book talkers and stuff like that. Some people do podcasts. Some people do all kinds of stuff. And I think it was Daniel Green on YouTube was going over the financial numbers of his first book. And he's like, this is how much money I put in, and this is what it went towards, and this is how much money I got out after a year. And a big thing that he was really pushing on that was do not compare your first experience writing a book with my first experience writing a book because I have this huge advantage of I have this platform and I've been creating this platform for 5+ years. So people know who I am. They know me in the book space. They trust my opinions and they think what I have to say is interesting. And I was like, okay, I need to start a platform. Doing an audio podcast was like the lowest barrier of entry that I could find. No offense. Uh,
No, it's fair.
yeah, but I was like, I'm not quite comfortable getting on TikTok and doing dances and stuff like that. So let's try an audio only podcast. And I did that for I want to say like 6 months. And the first episodes of Author Adjacent was just I would learn how to do something in writing, like plotting or what tropes were and stuff like that. And then I
Mhm.
would do the research, use it for whatever I'm trying to do, writing my first book, and then I would make an episode teaching the people of the things that I learned. And then
Mhm.
eventually I started getting into author interviews after I was encouraged by a few friends that I had made online. And I reached out to CM Kaplan, uh, great indie author of a really weird series if you're looking for something different. And I was like, hey, I've never done this before. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I would like to try to do author interviews. Will you be my first? And he was like, yeah, I got you. This sounds great. And I like cold called him. I didn't know him. We didn't have a relationship. And he was just amazing. And I love that about the book community, how open everybody is to being like, you want to try something different? You want to work together on something? Yeah, I have the space to do it. Let's try something.
Mhm.
I love
Yeah,
that.
it's I ended up starting the Dad Lit Pod because I brought up that my genre that I write is dad lit, and then we had a long Twitter discussion with a bunch of Canadian authors, Canadian Midwestern authors, about what constituted dad lit and about the need for dad lit to be represented in the literary space, which then gave birth to the Dad Lit Pod. Um, which I don't think we use to teach craft as much as is used as a place to introduce independent authors, established authors, industry professionals, and to sort
Hmm.
of talk about what it takes to um, produce quality works and to have like a genre that targets dads,
Yeah.
which is surprisingly difficult. I've found a lot of men, as we've discovered, have a hard time finding books that they're interested in, and so that's what I figured this would be about. I figured if I was going to write them, I might as well find the people who wanted to read them. And Yeah, so that's all along the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Dads
And
are a really like under-supported audience, so this is good work. You're
well,
doing the good work.
yeah. I think that there's room to be said because of course you brought up earlier two books, Redwall
Hmm.
and The Hobbit, that are considered dad-lit books.
Those are great
Um,
dad-lit books.
but mostly because they're old.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were mostly targeted at teens and what we would understand as middle grade.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and the interesting part is the sort of that style of heroic middle grade fantasy or heroic, accessible, interesting fantasy is primarily being done in the indie sphere these days. I would say, including your new book, Crownfall, which I believe is independent published. Is that correct?
That is. Yeah. I think like to just put a random little thing on that. I
Yeah,
think there was like a long period of time where literature in general and fantasy especially was very targeted towards boys and young men.
yeah.
And now traditional publishing, I would say, has done an overcorrection of that.
Hmm.
Especially when we had like that huge rise of like dystopian stories. And now the big thing in traditional publishing that's like really raking in all the money and getting all the deals is romantasy, which is also typically not really geared towards men, towards dads, towards young boys or anything
Yeah,
like that. So really the only space to consistently find books that are targeted towards men, that are targeted towards dads and young men, are is the indie space because that's where you can
yes.
find the experimental things, where you can find the old school style fantasy.
Yeah,
Because
unless you're
traditional,
unless you're rereading the classics.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like traditional publishing isn't really pumping out classic fantasy anymore. They haven't been
yeah,
for a long time. And even epic fantasy in general, the only people that are really putting out epic fantasy are the unicorns, the Brandon Sandersons, the people who
mhm,
have been established for decades. But you don't really get a lot of new names in epic fantasy for traditional publishing. But you'll
yeah.
find tons of it in indie publishing.
Yeah, I think that's because well, that genre comes with, as I'm sure you've noticed, because you wrote an indie fantasy novel that I
Yes.
imagine you intend to serialize and have subsequent uh, Crownfall,
Mhm.
about
I
a
actually only intend this one to be a standalone. I've already
really,
started, yeah, I wrote a
really,
standalone, and I did that on purpose because, again, that was another calculated business decision as far as being an author goes. Because
hmm
I didn't want to commit to writing a series that nobody wanted to read. I
hmm
wanted to write my first book. I cut my teeth on this book. I learned a lot. I think it is a damn good book, but I don't know how people are going to receive it. I don't know if audiences are going to enjoy it. I think they will. I have a hunch. I think I did the right things right, but I didn't want to write or a book that didn't end at the end of the book and then be like,
hmm
"Oh, no one's bought this book. I have to write two more." So I
Well,
wanted to learn from Gradfall.
you wouldn't necessarily have to, right? You don't have to, but
You
it would be
don't.
appreciated.
Yeah, because
The
like to the 30 people that have bought it, like actually, I think as of this morning, I think I'm at 40 pre-orders, to the 40 people who have bought pre-orders, I would feel obligated to finish the series. You
Hmm.
started a story that I provided for you. I would want to finish it.
Hmm. So you have 40 pre-orders already. That's terrific.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, a lot of yelling at the internet.
How many how many podcasts slash engagement bait tweets slash internet polls have you put out there?
It's been a lot. So this stop is another stop on the digital book tour that I've been doing for Crownfall. It started March 2nd when I did
Yeah,
a cover reveal for the book. And since then, I'm going to go all the way to April 28th, which is when the book comes out. And between all of that, I have 22 stops on the tour between
nice.
podcasts and blogs and just lives and things like that. And then I'm posting every single day. Every single day on all the social medias, I'm throwing something out there. Whether it's just an update like, hey, I got proofs. Like, I have a physical copy finally in my hand. That was an awesome
Hmm.
day. Or just updating people weekly with just every Sunday, I record a video in the morning and it's just me talking about how the week went. This week I was on the Dadlit podcast. It was really fun.
Hmm.
There's a link down to the episode below. This is what I have to look forward to this week. And it's just really exciting to do. It's exhausting, but it's also
Yeah,
very
I can
exciting
imagine.
with all the engagement and the feedback I've been getting from the community. I've really appreciated just how hyped everyone has been with me, and I've really appreciated it. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, if it, to the way you were doing it is the way that it is done. Um, uh, I don't think I had Kat Rosenfeld on a couple episodes ago, and
Hmm.
she had a big five deal, but she's doing the same thing, and it's all managed by her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It this is if you're going to try and sell a book these days, the sort of blitz 2 months before release and then getting people online so that your book gets to the fore
Yeah.
is so necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. In traditional or indie publishing.
In traditional
And
or indie publishing,
yeah.
you're going to end up doing it either way. Yeah, no, yeah, you, as you've probably demonstrated on your podcast, have done your research on this particular bout. So why don't you
Yeah.
tell the dad literati about Crownfall? What is Crownfall like? How is it different? And what will they get from picking up a copy of Crownfall?
Okay. Well, Crownfall is a new adult noble dark fantasy. It is about a thief, a noble lady, and a magical
Hmm.
engineer as they are pulled into revolting against the viceroy of their nation, who
Hmm.
is about to complete a 10-year plan for domination. And that's like my hook, my pitch for like telling people what Crownfall is about. But what Crownfall is really about is trust.
Hmm.
Like that is the theme throughout the whole thing, and that is what I want you to learn when you read Crownfall. I want you to learn about trust. I want you to learn about trusting other people, which is the classic way of looking at it, but also trusting yourself and learning what it means to be trustworthy. Because the reason I wrote this story with three POVs is because I thought trust had so many facets to talk about. And I wanted to
Hmm.
hit all three of them. And I didn't think I could do that with a single person. So we have our thief. He is on a path of revenge. His story began way before the book was written, where his life is destroyed by this viceroy. And now he's out to get him. It starts in the very first paragraph. The true job is killing the viceroy. So his story is about learning to trust other people because he's been burned so many times. And then we have our noble lady who is kind of manipulative. She is from this house that used to be much higher in the grand standing of the city, both financially and socially, and now it's much lower, and she's trying to claw her way back. But she needs to figure out how to become trustworthy when she's been surviving for so long by the grit of her teeth and by how much she can manipulate a situation to her advantage. And then we have our magical engineer, and this is the one that I think is really gonna like pull to the dad literati because he is a man.
It's
Yeah,
because he does math.
well, he does do math, but he is also a man who has had his morals tested and discovered that his beliefs will not keep being real just because he believes them. He
Hmm.
needs to do something about it. It's not going to be the way he wants it to be just because he wants it to be.
Hmm.
And that's something that I really wanted to explore because I feel like a lot of us, um, especially like young men starting families and everything, go into this having these beliefs, but then you're hit with the reality of like, this is what it means to be a father. This is what it means to be an uncle or a brother or a son or just a man in general with these responsibilities that you have to follow it up with action. You have to back it up with the identity of what you do.
Hmm.
So I hope people walk away having learned more about trust and like a little bit, ideally, like my favorite books are the ones where I learn a little bit more about life, where I walk away from it and like I know this was a fantastical tale. I know that there was ridiculous things like magic and dragons and whatever. But all of my favorite books taught me either about relationships or people or just the way the world works through a fantastical lens.
Hmm.
And that's what I hope people pull away from this.
No, that's a great message. I
Thank you.
take it Noble Dark is the inverse of Grim Dark.
It is like a cousin or a brother. So there's these four I'm gonna call them flavors of fantasy. And
Yeah.
Grimdark is the one that like everybody knows. It's the most popular. And then on the exact opposite of that, you have Noble Bright, which is classic fantasy, good versus evil, knights in bright and shiny armor, and evil forces at bay. And then you have the two fringe ones at that kind of mix the two at different levels. So in Grimdark, you have. I'm sorry, I was about to curse. Is this a cursing
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, you curse.
Okay, just
We're for
making sure.
adults. It's an adult
Just making
podcast.
sure. So like Grimdark is the world is shitty and the
Hmm.
people are shitty. And by the end of the story, everything's probably still going to be shitty.
Hmm.
But Noble Dark takes the world is shitty, but people are still trying to be good people. People are
Hmm.
trying to live in this dark world without surrendering their values or their morals. And who do they become while having that mix, that push and pull between the world is unfair, but I'm still going to try to do my best in it.
Hmm. Well, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's a
and
good
I like that a
message.
lot because it reflects my life, how I feel about the world. I can't control everything. I can't fix governments and companies and the world and society as large. But I can always either improve myself or improve my own personal situation.
Well, that's a great attitude to take.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It took a long time to form it.
It does, doesn't it? So, what are some similar works to Crownfall?
Ooh, I've been throwing these comps all over the internet, so I'm very ready for this question. Um, I would say things like Six of Crows, City of Brass, Arcane, the Netflix series, and Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. But I've also
Hmm.
had people tell me a little bit of like Foundry side as well because of the magitech that is within the realm since we have a magical engineer.
So you are very up on your contemporary fantasy.
I try to be. I read a lot
Yes.
of indie fantasy.
Yes. And so who are some of your favorite indie fantasy authors?
That's hard. That's always like a rotating list, I will be honest. I recently finished A Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart.
Hmm.
Fantastic. Like if you have not checked him out, definitely great for the dad lit audience, I will say. It is about a young man, all in first person perspective. So it's like this close, tight, you really get to know this character who has lost his homeland. And
Hmm.
he has now found himself suddenly the leader of the several thousand of people that have survived when there used to be tens of thousands. And this was the greatest nation that ever existed. And he is a little bit self-righteous, but he's also very aware of his faults and his foibles. And they sometimes bite him in the ass, but at the same time, he's still trying to do what's best for his people. But that is all great, and I love that. But P.L. Stewart's writing is beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. There is about midway through, there is this duel that happens, and I just absolutely love how he wrote the setup to the duel. How your main character, he just goes to breathe. Just remembering to breathe is most important. Usually in a fight, the man who is better breathed is the one who wins. And he just takes this moment to feel the sand beneath him, feel the wind on his face, and being like, I'm about to do a duel. I could die. My journey could end right here. So I have to take this moment and just really enjoy that I'm alive, that I'm here, that my people are at my back. And it's just this big old moment that I was just getting chills as the prose was just rising higher and higher to get ready for this climactic action. And then the action itself hit, and I was like, God damn, PL Stewart, you're taking me on a journey. I just absolutely loved it. It was this perfect mix of beautiful storytelling but also really good cinematic, brutal action. It
Hmm.
was very well done. I would say he's like top tier for me, and I recently read his. Ah, God, there's so much good indie fantasy out there. I'm actually one of the judges for I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called Spiffbo, the self-published fantasy blog off. It's this
The
competition that
self-published fantasy blog off. Okay,
yes.
tell me about this competition, Spitbo.
So it was originally started by Mark Lawrence, who is a traditionally published fantasy author. He has a few grimdark, he has a few just dark fantasy. He's a little all over the place, but it's always fantasy. Phenomenal, very good. He has this trilogy called the Broken Empire, I think it's the trilogy's name. Really dark story, but also fantastic. He does amazing twists. But talking about Spiffbo itself, he started Spiffbo because he was like, hey, I've made it. I won the lottery multiple times to get to the point where I am at, where I can live off my writing. I just do this because I enjoy it and I love it. So I'm going to make this competition. I'll get 10 blogs together and they will judge self-published fantasy books, and we will pick one as the best one for that year. And he's been doing it for over 10 years now. We're on Spiffbo
Hmm.
11 right now, and I am part of the Fanfiatics blog as one of the reviewers. So as a team, we are reviewing 30 books out of the whole
Yep.
allotment that gets submitted. And then we pick our semifinalists, and then eventually our group, as will all the other blogs, pick one book out of their allotment for this is the one that we think is the best. And then we give it to all the other blogs, and all the other blogs read it too. And then each blog will rank that top 10 books for this was our favorite out of the top 10, second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way down to 10, and that hits a numbers rank between all the blogs. And then by the end, we pick this is the one. This is the one that we pick as the best self published fantasy book that was submitted this year. Now, the competition got pretty big over the years. Like it's done a lot for its popularity. So it's now a lottery to get into the competition because it will open up every year and they'll have like hundreds of books within an hour. So now it's a random lottery for the 300 books that get in. Each blog gets 30 books, and then we eventually cut that down to one. So that's
Mhm.
been really fun. So I read a lot for that, and I'm finding a lot of like hidden gems in there too. Things that I wouldn't normally read because I wouldn't know to pick up those things. Because that's one of the biggest challenges of self-publishing is no one is going to talk about your book unless you talk about your book.
Yes, yes. Even if you don't self-publish, no one will talk about your book unless you talk about your
Well,
book.
yeah. Well, if you're lucky,
If
if
you're
you're lucky,
lucky,
you
if
get
you're
a
lucky.
self-publishing deal that has a marketing budget. I
Yes.
know a few people that have found these unicorn deals, and I really hope it works out for them because they're great writers, and I really would just want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
But
So how then do you find quality work if it's so hard to hunt it down?
I will say you have to be part of the community. You have to kind of have your
Mm,
finger on the pulse of it. And the community, the indie community is not just writers. There are
yeah.
bloggers. There are people that just like to read and just, hey, I found this indie book. It's really good. I like it. I read a lot of indie fantasy. I read a lot of indie sci-fi. Um, I like to dabble into romance sometimes, but that area is just so saturated. It's hard to find like really good ones that I like. Um, but yeah, just being part of the community, and that is such a low barrier of entry. All you have
Yeah.
to do is just show up. And because indie authors are on social media all over the place, we have to be. We have to talk about our books. Otherwise, like I said, no one will know about them.
This is
So
very true. Yes.
yeah, people will put out messages and being like, "Hey, I'm looking for reviews for my book. I'm trying to get more reviews on the Goodreads or Amazon. I will give you a free copy of my book if you just give me an honest review." And
Mhm.
that was actually how I got my gateway into the indie community. Adrian M. Gibson was he had released Mushroom Blues and he just put out a post randomly on X saying like, "Hey, I'm looking for more reviews. I want to give out free copies of my book to anybody who will." I sent him a message and I was like, "Yeah, I would love to." I'd never talked to him before. We had never had any kind of relationship before that. And he sent me a copy. I reviewed it. I liked it a lot. It was a really cool, very interesting book, which is the kind of stuff you find in indie. And from that, him and I have now like built a friendship with each other. I publicly like admit to that he is a huge influence on my success for being an indie author and how to do all these things. And he's really become a great friend to me and a gateway to the rest of the indie community. And all it started with was I just responded to a post. And that's all it
Mhm.
takes. That's all it takes to find good indie is just participation. The entry only costs your time and attention.
Yeah, and the books tend to be free.
They
A
can
lot of the
be,
books
yeah.
tend to be free. Yeah.
Yeah,
If
you
you're
like you
willing to extend a review
yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing the same exact thing right
Though you
now.
should
Like,
buy them. You should buy them.
yes. Yeah,
Yes. And
support your
definitely.
indie authors. Like there's so many ways to support them too. Like I know like money is tight for a lot of people for various reasons and stuff like that. There are so many free ways to support indie authors too. One of the big ones is ARC reviews, beta reads,
Oh
just
yeah.
leaving reviews of books. Like that is huge. Someone gets a 5-star review on their book, you have just made their week. Like
Mhm.
yes, it would be great if you had the space in your life to be able to like, oh, you like my book and you purchase it and you support me. I greatly appreciate that. But there's so many small ways that you can support indie authors with just your time and a little bit of your attention.
Yeah. That definitely true. The more you know. Uh da 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 da.
Yeah. But no, like there's a lot of ways to participate too. And the nice thing about indie authors is that they're very close in proximity to you, the reader. Like it would be very hard for me to meet Brandon Sanderson. But I can
Mm.
meet Adrian M. Gibson. I can talk to him. And I can beta read for him. I can get early access to indie authors' books because they will publicly be like, hey, I wrote this book. I'm looking for beta readers to have some feedback. I have this form to get your information if you want to sign up to do this. I'm doing that right now with ARC Reads. Like I'm giving away free digital copies of Crownfall to anybody who will review it. And it's just, I have a form, people fill it out, and then I send them a free copy and I say, hey, thank you. I really appreciate it. Take your time with it. And I'm looking forward to your honest review. If you like it, great. If you don't, I want to know why so that I can get better.
Yeah, where do if someone wants to go to get a copy of Crownfall with the idea of reviewing it, kindly reviewing it, but of course harshly, no, where should they go if they want to do that?
On all of my social media platforms, it is linked in my bio. I am Michael underscore Vadney on X, Instagram, Blue Sky. If it's a social media, I'm probably on it.
Hmm. How much time are you devoting? Well, here's a better question. Have
Mhm.
you found a particular social media platform that you, as a fantasy author and as a podcaster, find has a good ROI? What's the best return on investment for engaging with your audience and building your audience?
For fantasy, I would say like the top three platforms that you can really invest and get a good return is Instagram, TikTok, and X.
Hmm.
And they're all different. And the type of content that does well on them and the goal of them is all very different. TikTok is hard. That's one where I really struggle to make that work, and I'm
It's
not
not
putting
a
a lot of
dad lit platform. Let's go with that.
it's uh, it's not, but I've also known there is an author, ZS Diamanti. He does really well on TikTok,
Yeah.
and he writes like very family friendly fantasy. He is a dad. He wanted to write fantasy that his children could read, so it doesn't have like gratuitous violence or sex or cursing or anything like that. And he wanted to write family friendly fantasy, and he
Yeah.
does really well on TikTok. Like he has created a brand of himself as this is me, these are the stories that I write, and he does really well on TikTok and through the TikTok store. But by and large, the genre that does really well on TikTok is romance, is romantasy.
Hmm.
You can make it work as fantasy, but it is harder.
Hmm.
Then that's why I really like Instagram. I think if you can't do the TikTok thing, because TikTok does take a lot of effort to learn and to master, just do Instagram. Instagram is like an easier version of TikTok. You don't have to get in front of the camera if you don't want to. I know that there's a lot of people who have very successful accounts that's just text and pictures, or it's just a picture or a video of them just holding the camera, pointing it to themselves, and it's just text along the bottom going like, "Hey, I had this thought today and I wanted to share it." Just like simple things like that. And
I
then I
cannot
would say,
imagine, I'm going to be honest, I cannot
yeah.
imagine anyone, maybe they like looking at you doing that. I just can't imagine anyone wanting to see a picture of me, but that's fair.
You'd be
Yes.
surprised. Like the
Yeah.
thing that makes social media work for selling books is yes, you can shout about your books from the rooftop, you can do all kinds of things. You can just do pictures of your book. But for some reason, seeing the author with their book, seeing the author's face and seeing the book that they are selling, for some reason works. And
That's great.
like you can see it very reliably that if you don't show your face versus do show your face, you can make a faceless account work, but it does take more work.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it has a little bit to do with like AI and the big growth and the danger of like AI to writing and art in general. They want to see the person behind the story. They want to know that that is a real human being on the other
Hmm.
side and just being like, you're a person, I'm a person. We can find common ground, and that common ground might be this beautiful story that I wrote.
Hmm. Well, that's a terrific place to give you a chance to pitch your book to the dad literati, and tell them why Crownfall is for them, and why the realms of Noble Dark are a much preferred to the realms of Grimdark.
Oh, I'll start with the second half of that first. I would say I like Noble Dark more than Grimdark
Hmm.
because we have already seen that power corrupts, that the world is dark and unfair and unforgiving in a lot of ways. And I think there is a little bit of a fatigue with some of the Grimdark. Grimdark isn't going anywhere. It is very popular. People
Hmm.
love it as a very strong fan base. But I do think that readers in 2026 are having a bit of fatigue of the darkness of the, yeah, I know everything sucks. They want to see characters that are being tested, that are faltering sometimes, that are making mistakes, but are ultimately trying to do their best, trying not to become monsters in a monstrous world. And that's the kind of story that you're going to find in Crownfall. You're going to find three relatively like young adult people in their early to mid 20s trying to figure out how they deal with these responsibilities. How do they achieve the things that they want without sacrificing themselves and what that means. And I think it's a great book to just learn a little bit about yourself and learn a bit about maybe life a little bit. I'm very excited for it.
Well, that's terrific. Go get yourself a pre-ordered copy of Crownfall, folks. So what's next on the docket? What do we have to look forward to from Michael Vadney?
Well, I'm working on a few projects right now. I have two anthologies that I am joining to be a part of, where I'm going to be writing a few short stories for.
Hmm.
I'm kind of doing that as a small break between bigger projects. But what I'm most excited about is I am writing a series. The next book I write is going to be the first book of a series. I haven't decided if it's going to be 3 or 5 books yet, but this one I'm very excited for. It is. I even have the pitch for this one. I'll hit you with it actually. Uh, it's about two brothers, two half brothers, who travel back in time to save their mother from an accident, only to discover that their mother never died and that she left the family and faked her death. They're yanked
Interesting.
back to the present and left only with questions as they now try to find their mother and ask her what happened, what has she been doing this whole time, and why did she leave?
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that project.
Well, Michael Vadney, thank you so much for coming on the Dadlit pod and talking about Crownfall, and also sharing real pearls of wisdom. And I know that you're probably going to want to get some sleep to prepare for the further podcast blitz. So if you just want to say adios to the Dad Literati.
Thanks, folks, for having me. It's been a blast. Thank you, Daniel.
Well, thank you, Michael, for joining me. And this has been an episode of the Dadlit Pod. I'm your host, Dan Roberts. See you soon.
Our time together has come to an end. It's time to return to your wife, kids, and friends. It's time to pick up those books you forgot while you wait for the next Dadlit Pod.